Hi, this is Alicia Allen with Hope of Ruth Ministries Church, and I just wanted to get on here and share a little bit with you guys tonight. Today was kind of a rough day. I got into it a little bit with my son and got angry, and we kept kind of going back and forth and arguing, and I just kept feeling myself getting angrier and angrier, and the next thing I know, I'm saying things that I didn't necessarily want to be saying. And make a long story short, I left and I went grocery shopping, escaping, and I turned on a sermon. And as I was listening, the first thing he started talking about was this defiant faith. And I was like, oh, I can relate to this message, and it reminded me of my dad and a recent journey I went through with my dad. So it really kind of resonated with me. But as I was listening, he starts talking about Psalms 23. And in Psalms 23, it says that the Lord has prepared a table in the presence of our enemies. And as he's talking, he starts talking about how we can be sitting at this table, and before we know it, the enemy is sitting at our table. And he says that he doesn't come to our table and tell us he's going to kill us or make us angry or make us lose our self-control or our peace. But he comes in a way that seduces us, that we don't recognize as the enemy. And as he was talking, I just felt the Lord say, this is for you. And while I was getting angry with my son, and it kept escalating, I kept hearing this, you're justified in what you're saying because what he did was wrong. And I just kept getting more irritated and more angry. And what it was the enemy. He was sitting at my table. He was whispering in my ear. He was seducing my own pride and my own ego of thinking that I was right in what I was doing. But as I was listening to the sermon and I could relate to it, I also heard the Lord say, you let him sit at the table that I prepared for you. And the thing is the enemy's not invited to our table. Sure, he can, prowl around, but he's not invited. And I ended up listening to the sermon, and by the time I was finished, I actually had to call my son, and I apologized to him. And I actually used that exact wording, and I told him, I said, I allowed the enemy at my table, and I'm sorry, and what I said to you and the things that I did were wrong. And, it was in that moment that I had to remember, yes, the enemy did sit at my table, but he wasn't invited. And I don't have to entertain what he says while he's at the table. We only have to listen to the one true guest, the one who necessarily isn't a guest, but he's the one who reserved the table. He paid for the table, for the reservation at the highest cost. And today I was reminded of that. I was reminded how quickly the enemy can come in and sit at our table and start taking from our table what God prepared for us, whether that's our peace, our joy, or our strength. And so I'm very thankful that a message that I thought was for something else, the Lord actually used it to not only correct me, but to remind me that, as Psalms 23 says, He has prepared a table before me in the presence of my enemies. But it's for me and Him. It's for two guests. It's not for the enemy to sit at with us. So if I can share anything with you guys, it would be to remind you, as I was reminded today, don't give a seat to the enemy at your table. Use that defiant faith and tell him to get lost. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you guys got something from what I shared as much as I got today. If you like our page at Hope of Ruth Ministries Church, just go and subscribe and follow us and tune in for the next live video. Thanks. Have a good night. God bless.